All right, so let's get into it. While I do that, ladies and gentlemen, just to not waste time, please like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the platform. If it's your first time, let me know where you guys are watching from. Shout out to all of my real ones. Shout out to all of my supporters. I appreciate y'all. Let's get into this, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do the do. This is the Auditor General's report on the Support Jamaica website.
Background 1.1. In 2015, the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, Odpem, was designated as a body corporate under the Disaster Risk Management (DRM) Act of 2015 as the public body mandated to oversee national disaster management. 1. The DRM Act repealed the Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management Act, 1993. Section 4 of the DRM Act states that the principal objects of the office shall be to advance disaster preparedness and emergency management measures in Jamaica by facilitating and coordinating the development and implementation of integrated disaster management systems and institute measures as may be necessary for mitigating disasters. The functions of the office include the following. Figure 1. Odpem statutory functions. Developing and implementing policies and programs to achieve and maintain an appropriate state of national and sectoral preparedness for coping with all emergency situations which may affect Jamaica. Encouraging and supporting disaster preparedness and mitigation measures in all the parishes in collaboration with local government authorities, community-based organizations, and private and voluntary agencies. Providing appropriate training programs and consulting services related to all aspects of disaster preparedness, disaster mitigation, loss reduction, and disaster management. Planning and implementing programs to enhance public awareness and understanding of disaster-related issues, emergency management, hazard prevention, and similar matters. Identifying and analyzing hazards or emergency situations and conducting related operational research into their effects. Establishing, maintaining, and managing mutual assistance and cooperation agreements. Source: Disaster Risk Management Act, 2015. 1 Section 3(1) of DRM Act, there is hereby established for the purposes of this Act a body to be called the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, which shall be a body corporate to which the provisions of Section 28 of the Interpretation Act shall apply. Page 9 Real-time Audit of the Hurricane Melissa Relief Initiative February 2026. 1.2. On October 28, 2025, Hurricane Melissa made landfall in Jamaica as a Category 5 storm, causing catastrophic damage across the island, particularly in the western parishes. In response, the Government of Jamaica, GJ, launched the Hurricane Melissa Relief and Recovery Initiative, a coordinated national effort designed to provide immediate relief, food, shelter, medical supplies, support housing recovery, and strengthen long-term community and climate resilience through partnerships with the private sector, non-governmental, and international organizations. Odpem directly coordinates the Hurricane Melissa relief efforts in Jamaica and plays a central role in both emergency response and recovery. Additionally, the Government of Jamaica launched the disaster relief website supportjamaica.gov.jm, which handles donations and humanitarian aid logistics. Audit rationale, scope, and methodology. 1.3. Disaster relief efforts often face challenges such as the need for rapid decision-making, fluid operating conditions, coordination across multiple agencies, and heightened risks of resource misallocation, all of which constrain governance and control systems and increase public demand for transparency. A real-time audit helps address these issues by assessing whether emergency procurement and operational processes remained compliant and well-documented, evaluating the adequacy of governance and coordination mechanisms, reviewing controls over the receipt and distribution of relief resources, and providing independent assurance to strengthen accountability and improve future disaster response efforts.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand in these types of situations, it opens up an opportunity for persons that are finger fearing and have adhesive fingers to thief. Perfect opportunity for them to thief. So we have to say thank you to the Auditor General for doing a real time audit. Real talk.
Efforts. 1.4. The objective of the real-time audit is to assess whether the activities relating to the Hurricane Melissa Relief Initiative were conducted with due regard for transparency and accountability. Figure 2. Specifically, the series of audits seek to determine whether internal controls were adequate to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse of public resources during disaster response and recovery by assessing whether A. Appropriate IT controls exist over www.supportjamaica.gov.jm website. B. All donations, including funds and benefits in kind, have been accounted for in keeping with the relevant GOJ guidelines, and C. Procurement activities complied with the applicable laws, regulations, and guidelines. Page 10 Real-Time Audit of the Hurricane Melissa Relief Initiative February 2026. Figure 2. Areas to be covered in Hurricane Melissa Relief Initiative Real-Time Audit. Information technology. Did appropriate IT controls exist over the supportjamaica.gov.jm website to ensure information security? Governance and oversight. Is there an effective institutional framework in place to manage disaster relief efforts? Financial management. Are all hurricane relief funds and in-kind donations accurately accounted for? Procurement. Is the awarding of contracts for goods and services compliant with the applicable GOJ procurement procedures? Inventory management. Does Odpem have an effective inventory management system in place to account for all relief items, whether procured or donated? Relief distribution. Are procured and donated items distributed to the intended beneficiaries? Source: OGD planning documents. 1.5. We also considered how the audit will contribute to the wider strategic aim of the Auditor General's Department to promote improvements in the use of public funds through better governance and resource management. Figure 3. This audit focused on one of the thematic approaches of the Auditor General's Department, which are aligned with national priorities and key development concerns. Figure 3. In scoping the audit, we considered how it would contribute to the achievement of the Auditor General's Department wider strategic aims by A. Assisting the Government of Jamaica with useful recommendations that will aid in improvements in the delivery of public services. B. Targeting coverage of the Auditor General's Department, OGD, audit themes, governance, resource management, and accountability to aid in achieving the OGD's vision of promoting a better country through effective audit scrutiny of government operations, and C. Providing assurance to Parliament and the public on the efficiency, effectiveness, and economy of the operations of MDAs. Source: OGD's Audit Study Plan. 1.6. The audit was conducted in accordance with auditing standards issued by the International Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions, INTISI, including the Guidance on Auditing Disaster Management, GWID 5330. Specific focus is being placed on the recovery and relief activities and
Wait a minute, that's impressive. The audit was conducted in accordance with the auditing standards issued by the International Organization of Supreme Audit Institution, INTISI. I didn't even know that there was an organization named that, including the guidance of the Auditing Disaster Management Guide 5330, specific focus being placed on the recovery and relief activities, national and international response to emergency phase of the disaster management cycle. Those standards require that we comply with the ethical requirements, plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance that reliance may be placed on Odpem internal controls. The series of audits will also include a review of the key information technology systems used in Hurricane Melissa Relief Initiative related documents, interviews with management and staff, key stakeholders, observations and analysis of data, information provided by Odpem. Let's continue.
Key areas covered in this report. 1.7. This report assesses the access and data protection controls implemented in relation to the www.supportjamaica.gov.jm website up to January 20th, 2026, Figure 4. Subsequent reports will address other areas of information technology, IT, financial management, procurement, and relief distribution controls in greater detail. Figure 4. Focus of this report. Information technology. Did appropriate IT controls exist over the supportjamaica.gov.jm website to ensure information security? Page 12 Real-time Audit of the Hurricane Melissa Relief Initiative February 2026. Part 2. supportjamaica.gov.jm. Background. 2.1. 2.2. The supportjamaica.gov.jm website, which forms part of the government's Hurricane Melissa relief and recovery efforts, was created to mobilize donations, track emergencies, and coordinate recovery efforts in the aftermath of the hurricane. Developed and donated by a private entity, the platform is designed to accept online donations and facilitate relief efforts through volunteer enrollment, incident reporting, and the communication of a national needs list as depicted in Figure 5 below. Additionally, the website facilitates the uploading of documentation required by the Jamaica Customs Agency, JCA, for relief clearance. This feature streamlines the importation process for disaster relief items by enabling donors and agencies to submit essential documents such as packing lists, airway bills, bills of lading, invoices, and cargo manifests directly through the platform. Figure 5, supportjamaica.gov.jm landing page. Source: supportjamaica.gov.jm.
Take a look at this figure right here. Hurricane Melissa relief. This is the landing page. Okay. Wow, this is getting very interesting, boy. Let's continue.
In October 2025, the private developer donated the supportjamaica.gov.jm website to the Government of Jamaica for use as part of a software as a service (SaaS) setup. The government was gifted the functionality of the website, while technical aspects of the design, coding, and intellectual property rights to the source codes and security requirements were retained by the developer. While the supportjamaica.gov.jm website was launched on October 28, 2025, Odpem's relationship with the private developer was not formalized until approximately 2 months later in.
This part of it is also super important, right? So it's like what the gentleman said, Mr. Gill, in the PAC meeting. I am asking the question, who made the decision to do it this way? Why did they think it was prudent to do it in such a way? The government was gifted functionality of the website, while the technical aspect of design, coding, and intellectual property rights to the source code and security requirements were retained by the developer. Why didn't they pay for it all out? As a matter of fact, there's some information that states that there's an argument out there and some information out there that states that, you know, the people in Jamaica never got to test it. In the government never got to test the website. I don't know how true that is. But that also compounds, you know, the concern around this thing. It says here that while the Support Jamaica government website was launched October 28, 2025, Odpem's relationship with the private developer was not formalized until approximately 2 months later. So what I understand from that is that Odpem didn't even have a relationship with the developer. They didn't know the developer. 2 months later, and you guys were advertising and telling people you were campaigning for them to donate in an emergency when you didn't have no formal relationship with the developer. What the hell is going on, bro?
What can go so?
And this is unbelievable, right? 2 months later, December 2025, when the deed of the agreement was signed by both parties. Is this how things usually work? So I guess the question that I need to ask is, when did donations start to go into the Support Jamaica Support Jamaica website? When did donation actually start to pour in? That's important. Let me Google that real quick while I continue to read this, cause yo, nah, bro, this is not it. I'm sorry, this is not it, bro. This is not it. Let me find out.
This deed formally documents the mutual understanding, intentions, and obligations of the Government of Jamaica, represented by Odpem, and the private developer concerning the development, donation, implementation, management, and ongoing operation of the website. 2.3 Figure 6 below outlines the key events, decisions, and contractual arrangements associated with the development, deployment, and governance of Jamaica's national disaster donation platforms following major hurricane events. It traces the evolution from the initial response to Hurricane Beryl in July 2024 through to the response to Hurricane Melissa in October 2025. Figure 6. Support Jamaica Timeline. Source: OPM and Odpem Correspondences. Information Security, IS, Governance Gaps. 2.4 Effective access control is a critical component of an organization's information security, IS, framework, ensuring that information and information processing facilities are protected against unauthorized use or disclosure. Best practice dictates that access must be governed by a documented policy that aligns with the organization's business objectives and security requirements. Access rights should be assigned based on clearly defined roles and responsibilities, as well as consider the principles of least privileges, need to know, and need to use.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it's just as I feared. I just looked it up, right? When was the first donation sent to the Support Jamaica website? According to this, on Google here, earliest donation surpassed US 1 million shortly after launch. Shortly after being launched, US $1 million was sent to the Jamaica website. I want you guys to let that sink in. With all the issues, all the arguments around security about the website, because of an emergency, persons they went at pace to contribute. No, just let's go. But the system itself was not 100% ironclad where security is concerned. Yes, 1 million USD shortly after being launched, reaching US 1.13 million and Jamaica 58.85 million by November 13th, 2025. Remember, hurricane was October 28th, 2025. 15 days after this particular website was pulling in 1.13 million US dollars. With all of the issues that the Auditor General mentioned, yo, sure, 1.13 million US dollars. So all those donators, are you guys okay? You guys good? Y'all feel with this particular information coming up, do you feel safe? Do you feel confident? about your information not being out there. Let's continue, ladies and gentlemen. Just asking questions here. Just asking questions here. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. This is incredible. This is incredible.
Odpem currently has in draft an Information Systems Division Policies and Procedures, as well as an Information Systems User Policy. However, these documents were not formally approved or implemented in keeping with International Best Practice 3. Odpem also did not have an established control framework for governing user access and the wider information systems management within the organization. Therefore, roles and responsibilities as well as the adopted access control model and principles were not defined to manage the assignment, administration, and monitoring of access rights within Odpem. In the absence of approved and operational policies and procedures, the organization lacked a formal and enforceable set of controls to guide user access provisioning, account management, and system security practices.
Alright, so Odpem currently has in draft an information system division policy and procedures, as well as the information system user policy. However, these documents were not formally approved or implemented in keeping with international best practices. So, international best practices where those two things are concerned was not being practiced, ladies and gentlemen. Odpem also did not have an established control framework at that time when this thing was set out there. Odpem also did not have an established control framework for governing user access and wider information system management within the organization. Therefore, the roles and responsibilities as well as the adopted access control model and principles were not defined to manage the assessment, administration, and monitoring of access rights within Odpem. In the absence of approved and operational policy and procedures, the organization lacked a formal, enforceable set of control to guide users, provisioning, account management, and system security practices. Jesus of mercy. Hey, given the foregoing, we assess the organization practice and procedures against general accepted IT governance and access management best practices. These best practices serve as benchmarks for evaluating the adequacy and effectiveness of control in environments where formalized documentation and policy are not in place. Figure 7 below presents the key elements of access control framework, which served as a benchmark for evaluating the adequacy and effectiveness of Odpem. Monitoring and review privilege access or session monitoring, periodic access review, incident response and remediation, authorized and authentication, authorized roles, permission access control list, role biased access control at a RBAC, authentic password, multi-factor authentication. Is that what that is? Authentication, sorry. Single sign-on certificates, privilege, access management, PAM, administration accounts, segregation of duties, SOD, least privilege, governance and policy, access control policy, IT governance alignment, definition of roles and responsibilities, identification and access management, IAM, identification and authentication, user provision and deprovisioning, modification of user roles, handling non-employee identities, example, contractors or vendors. Wow. Hey, man, listen. Woo, boy. Inadequate user access management is the next phase of this article.
Odpem currently has in draft an information systems division policies and procedures, as well as an information systems user policy. However, these documents were not formally approved or implemented in keeping with International Best Practice 3. Odpem also did not have an established control framework for governing user access and the wider information systems management within the organization. Therefore, roles and responsibilities as well as the adopted access control model and principles were not defined to manage the assignment, administration, and monitoring of access rights within Odpem. In the absence of approved and operational policies and procedures, the organization lacked a formal and enforceable set of controls to guide user access provisioning, account management, and system security practices. 2.6 Given the foregoing, we assess the organization's practices and procedures against generally accepted IT governance and access management best practices. These best practices serve as the benchmark for evaluating the inadequate user access management. 2.7 Information security best practices recommend that all access requests should undergo formal authorization, with duties appropriately segregated to reduce risk. Access permissions must be regularly reviewed and promptly revoked when no longer required, while privileged roles should be carefully identified, restricted, and subject to continuous monitoring to maintain the integrity and security of critical information assets.
So we can say that based off the lack, the best practices not being there, not having continuous monitoring to maintain integrity and security of critical information assets, that the integrity was not maintained and the security was definitely not there. That's a problem. That is a problem. That is a very, very serious problem.
Assets. 3 ISO/ page 15. User access granted without formal requests and/or approvals. 2.8. 2.9. Our review of the Support Jamaica Administrative Dashboard identified deficiencies in user access authorization relating to 8 individuals, external to Odpem, Appendix 1. Odpem advised that the individuals were employed to government ministries, department and agencies, MDAs, and were required to perform functions including volunteer coordination, pledge management, as well as reporting and situational awareness. However, Odpem was unable to provide evidence of documented requests and formal approvals for the provisioning, modification, and revocation of these user accounts, which does not align with best practice recommendations for. Additionally, we were not able to determine, based on available documentation, the specific job roles and responsibilities of the officers within their MDA that supported the level of system access granted. Consequently, we could not confirm the basis for the access granted or validate the authorization. Process to determine whether the access granted aligned with the specific job functions and responsibilities of the individuals concerned.
This is what you call a gray area. And in accountability, gray areas are dangerous, because they don't know the roles and responsibility of the individual, so they don't know if they had breached anything. It's the same thing as $3 trillion is unaccounted for. Oh, but that doesn't mean that we stole the money, but it doesn't mean that you didn't. We don't have any receipts. That is a problem. That is a major problem. Let's continue.
Concerned. Additionally, one of the 8 individuals, User 1, from the Ministry of Education, Youth, Skills and Information, MOESI, was assigned as an admin user on October 31, 2025, and later updated to a super admin role on November 1, 2025. Odpem stated on November 24, 2025, that the user was the OPM liaison officer with responsibility for the user administration of the supportjamaica.gov.jm website. Subsequent queries were raised with OPM, which informed on December 16, 2025, that the user was a contract officer under the Jamaica House Fellows Program and was assigned to the office of Name and Position Redacted. OPM further indicated that User 1 transitioned to Moisai when Name Redacted was reassigned to that ministry. 2.10, however, our records indicated that the Name Redacted was assigned to Mosei in October 2024, but the user's activities on the Support Jamaica administrative dashboard occurred up to 2025 November 14th. Upon further inquiry, OPM informed via letter dated January 6, 2026, that based on ministerial directive, the information portfolio was requested to provide urgent support for the supportjamaica.gov.jm relief website. User 1 was therefore asked to provide time-bound administrative support during the emergency response phase. Her involvement was limited to copy editing and vetting of the public-facing content, conducting functional checks, and extracting data required for situation reporting. 2.11, our review of the dashboard revealed that User 1's super admin privileges encompassed full end-to-end administrative, operational, reporting, and security functions consistent with privileged user access, detailed in Figure 8 below. Between 2025 November 1st and November 14th, 2025, the contract officer provisioned 10 user accounts to both Odpem staff and external users from other MDAs. This access, without a clearly documented access policy, may expose sensitive data and systems to potential threats, including unauthorized access and data loss. To date, neither OPM nor Odpem provided documentary evidence to support the assignment of the access privileges granted to User 1 and the associated timelines for the execution of the functions on the supportjamaica.gov.jm website. Figure 8. Support Jamaica Administrative Dashboard, Super Admin Privileges. Source: Support Jamaica Administrative Dashboard.
Jamaica. Somebody say in our comment section. Venus say, why aren't the Jamaican people outraged? Get the likes up for me as much as I can, ladies and gentlemen. Double tap the screen if you're on YouTube or on TikTok. TikTok, I don't know the aim. You know. See there, there's a 50k likes. Wow. user account management, incident or oversight, resource or content management, and we have operational workflow management, and at the center that you have super admin privileges in terms of the Support Jamaica administrative dashboard. Let's continue.
2.12, the existence of multiple external user accounts without clear justification, coupled with the absence of a defined system or framework for provisioning and managing external users, highlights inefficiencies in Odpem's management of user accounts. Collectively, these control deficiencies increase the risk of unauthorized access to sensitive donor, financial, and administrative data, potential misuse of system privileges, and noncompliance with applicable data protection laws. Ultimately, these weaknesses expose Odpem to heightened operational and reputational risks.
Can you hear that? Heightened operational and reputational risk. It could damage their reputation forever. Those risks that were taken. Because of the loopholes and the potential of criminality that could have taken place, the breaches. Mighty God.
Risks. Insufficient controls over the deprovisioning of external user accounts. 2.13, our review of the audit log showed that User 1's account was deactivated on December 23, 2025, while the account for User 4 was deactivated on December 29, 2025. The deprovisioning dates for the remaining 6 external accounts could not be confirmed through audit log evidence. However, all accounts reflected an inactive status on the date of review. On December 31, 2025, Odpem indicated that actions were taken to deprovision the external user accounts and develop a supportjamaica.gov.jm administrative dashboard access request form. A timeline was not provided for the implementation of the access form. 2.14 Further, the rationale for the deprovisioning of these accounts was unclear, particularly considering the purposes previously communicated for the creation of the accounts. Standard practice dictates that user accounts should be deprovisioned following a change in an individual's role, completion of assigned responsibilities, or separation from the organization. Yet the specific basis for deprovisioning in this instance was not substantiated. This lack of justification represents a control weakness that undermines accountability, traceability, and increases the risk of inappropriate or unauthorized access due to inconsistent or poorly governed deprovisioning practices.
Wow. That's part one, ladies and gentlemen. I can't go through all of it. I don't want this to be the first reaction to be too long. So we're gonna start where we left off in the next one. So make sure this is part one. Make sure you watch part two, ladies and gentlemen. Alright? Good.